and welcome to Into the Light. I'm your host, Edina Mauvana. Today we have Spence Madden. Spence is the no BS business coach for New Earth visionaries devoted to harnessing entrepreneurship to awaken humanity. He helps established entrepreneurs architect their $1 million movement, 10x their cash flow, and embody a leadership role during humanity's rapidly arriving golden era. His core belief is that every visionary, heart-led entrepreneur has the potential to quickly create time, energy, and financial freedom so they can actualize on their vision for the free and abundant new earth. I love that, Spence. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you today and learn more about all this work with the entrepreneurs that you're doing for New Earth.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited for this conversation, and shout out to all of your viewers who are in for a treat. I know this is going to be a powerful flow that we're going to kick off right here.
Yeah, awesome. And so I wanted to first talk to you about your little motto here, that you are the no BS business coach. So I obviously for New Earth visionaries, but yeah, what do you mean by that with the no BS tagline? Like, how do you cut straight to the point with some of this woo-woo stuff that we keep hearing about?
I love that. So I'll preface that by when I say that, I always kind of put the air quotations because it's like it's personal branding, but it doesn't really matter that much. But I've been an entrepreneur for 2 decades now, like paying myself full time with an income for a decade in all kinds of different niches and coaching thousands and thousands of different visionary New Earth entrepreneurs. And what I've really realized is business coaches and entrepreneurship in general are programming us with old coding. I call this the patriarchal code. I call this the hyper masculine way of doing business. And if you've been on this planet for a little bit of time, you'll know that that way of doing business, of engaging with potential customers, doesn't really work. It's led to poverty. It's led to 0.001% of the elite running the show. It's led to mass pollution. People aren't that happy. Our spirituality, connectedness to the divine is in many ways is at an all-time low. And I really attribute this to this energetic of the patriarchy or the hyper masculine way, this great imbalance in business. And when I say the no BS, what I mean is, first and foremost, standing for a new way of business and a way of sacred reciprocity, of a way where we're creating businesses, but as an extension of ourselves, not simply to make profit, which yes, absolutely, we want to make profit, but also bringing forth our missions, going on this great journey of entrepreneurship, the ultimate personal growth initiation through our businesses, and raising humanity, the vibration of humanity through what we are creating with our businesses. And I think it's BS how we've been taught to do business. I think the old patriarchy way served its purpose. We've learned our lessons, but we don't need to keep running that same script any longer. We can build businesses that have movements, that speak to our soul, clients that enliven us. I don't believe in hustle and grind. I know that there's intention and there's focus and there's clarity and there's purpose, but there's no hustle and grind. That's the old way. We're moving into this new way. And I'm just excited because more and more people, more and more entrepreneurs are waking up or starting to be entrepreneurs thinking, I don't want to do it this old way anymore. And I'm here to be a beacon and a pillar and say, hey, neither do I. So let's create something different.
I love that because obviously, I mean, I've heard of that. The old school bro marketing is like outdated, out like we're moving beyond that. And so
Cold
much of
messaging.
your work, yeah, or just the hustle and grind, like you mentioned, and it sets us off on this hamster wheel of doing and just driving things in a way that's not in alignment with attracting and being more in that, especially as a female. I hear a
100%.
lot about the ways in which we have to tap into our divine feminine strengths in this process to really attract, like you mentioned, like our soulmate clients or whatever that might be. So yeah, that's very interesting because obviously you're a man and you're in this world talking about dismantling the patriarchy. I mean, how do you approach that when you're like trying to communicate with your ideal clients on what brought you here and kind of the importance of like even understanding how the patriarchy is involved in our businesses?
Absolutely. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. This is very important for both men and both women. And we know that there are two overarching energies within this earth realm. We know there's the masculine, the feminine, alpha, omega, Shiva, Shakti, whatever you want to say it. It's these two energies. And the work of being a human, a soul incarnated here, is how do we find our unique synergy, our unique blend of these two ratios? And when we find that unique blend, this is what this leads to oneness or unity. You might have had a transcendent experience. Maybe you're in yoga, maybe someone's in plant medicine, where you all of a sudden realize you're not separate anymore. You're 100% everything. You're God, you're a source, you're the divine, the great mystery. And what we see happen is this same concept applies to business. Imagine if you were feeling like you were in total flow, total abundance in your business. Well, you have mastered that dance of putting your masculine and your feminine together as applied to business. So let's do a little example here, just so the listener can kind of get an idea. And remember, I'm going to explain this as a linear concept, but this is a multidimensional concept. I'm just putting it on a line so we can understand here. So let's say there's a line, and on the right, or I guess this might be reversed because I'm on a reverse camera, but on one hand, we have the masculine. On the other one, we have the feminine. When they're imbalanced in your unique ratio, they're somewhere close together. But what we've seen happen for the masculine in business, and this is for both men and women, is it's way out of here. Like, it's out of this camera frame. We're focusing all the energy there. And this has created hustle, grind, fear, overwhelm, stress, depression, burnout, greed, lust, control, suppression. That's all hyper masculine. And you can see our structures, our societal structures, they feed into that, right? Like, look at our taxation system, look at our governments, they all feed into that. What our work is as New Earth leaders right now is to bring back, unpack, dissolve, integrate all of that conditioning that we were programmed back into alignment. So we have a sacred masculine and a sacred feminine. Now, we also see in business, and I see this often with my female business coaches, that what can happen is we also can end up in what I call the wounded feminine. So the feminine is pulled way over here in our businesses. And this can look like chaos, inability to focus, doing 25 things at once, melting down, victim consciousness, suppression of our inner gifts. So you have these extremes, and this is how business is being done by 99% of people right now. We're in those areas. And that's before we start looking at the personal development aspect of masculine and feminine. But our work is to, how do we bring this in here? Because as you bring this in here and you learn and you adjust and you experiment, finding your unique ratio, getting rid of the hyper and the wounded masculine and feminine conditions, not allowing them to be in your conscious awareness anymore, very quickly you create what I believe to be the biggest catalyst to 10xing, massively growing your client list and cash flow. It is because you have the sacred masculine, which is simple business systems and structure, very easy to implement. Most of us out there, we don't want to spend hours and hours of our most valuable resource time building crazy back end. How about, like, how long does it take to build a funnel these days and things like that? Can take so long to get it right. It might not even work. Well, we want to really simplify this, focus on what is going to create the biggest impact with us in our masculine. And then our feminine, and this applies to both men and women, is our creative, nourishing life force. This is what has been suppressed in business. Humans are infinitely creative. We could solve all the problems right now, the plastics in the oceans, the control, the governance. We can solve all of that very easily when we are tapped in and nourishing that feminine. That literal mother energy, the birthing of the womb. Doesn't matter if you're in a male or female body, you're still birthing from that space. And this is why so much of my work is helping men and women come to find that unique ratio, because that's how we birth the solutions. And that's how the solutions, the great ideas, the downloads, are able to disseminate in the world, because they're held up by the simple masculine structure. We need both. We're not moving into this free and abundant new earth I like to talk about until we learn to come into our unique ratio of these two.
Amazing. Yeah, I agree with that. And I even in my own process of moving out of burnout and being in like a corporate grind, hustle and grind background, and just the movement into our spiritually led or more soul aligned
Hmm.
businesses. So yeah, tell me a little bit about who, because it sounds like you work with both men and women, and what kind of businesses are you helping these new earth leaders to create? Like what is your ideal kind of client that you're working with, and where do you take them from and get them to? Because I know 10xing is what we all want to do in every area
Yeah.
of our life. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a variety of different clients, I'll say client avatars that I work with, a variety of different humans at different stages on their journey. I work in like with very high level visionary leaders who are making over $50,000 a month in recurring income, scaling into the multiple millions, usually in my high level mastermind containers. But I've realized a big gap in the marketplace. And this is where we've talked about, I know off camera, my work with how do we integrate AI technology authentically so that way we can scale with ease and flow. And I'm a huge believer that when you harness this new AI technology in a way that works for you, you can actually 10x. If you're just starting out, you're a coach, you're making $1,000 a month. Well, you can make that 10,000 very quickly and take back your time with AI. And I've realized this is as applicable to an entrepreneur who hasn't made a dollar as it is to an entrepreneur who's trying to make their next million. In learning to integrate these technologies now will create more time freedom. We all want time freedom. We all want to make more cash flow. We all want it to make more ease. So I have a kind of middle offer where it's an AI academy where anyone can come in regardless of where they are. The caveat being that they are coaches, they're healers, they're consultants, they're online service-based providers who obviously resonate with this idea of awakening happening, human consciousness going up. Of course, we have the lens of that throughout. And then my workshops and various things that are low ticket get bought by people who are just starting out, and they get bought by people who want to scale their business into the millions.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I'm glad you brought up AI, because obviously that's the latest and greatest thing that everyone is starting to tap into over the last, I guess it's been just over a year now that it started
Yep.
to really explode with ChatGPT and all that. So
Yep.
yeah, how do you help business owners who are just getting new to the idea, or maybe they have a lot of resistance against using
Mm-hmm.
AI? I know a lot of people, especially in the spiritual
Yep.
areas, they want to
100%.
stay like in their own authenticity, and yeah, they know that they're like, this is evil, this is gonna,
It
I
is
mean, because
evil. Yeah. No, it's a
there's
big conversation.
yeah, and there's ideas that it's gonna like surpass our humanity and then take us down into
Mm-hmm.
destruction. So yeah, how do you get people around to navigate like what AI is doing, and how do we really
Yep.
frame that to benefit us?
I think this is an amazing question. And I will say this topic is one of the biggest things that end up in my DMs when I put up stories on Instagram and I have viral videos and stuff. Because, yes, spiritual, aware people who've done the work, who are doing personal development, who are aware of some of the old structures, the governments and the control and the elites. Like, if you're at all aware of that, you'll kind of know about the transhumanism agenda. You'll know about like the idea of merging man with machine. Remember, they show us this. They get our permission in all of the movies, Star Trek, the Borg merging. Like it's been in front of us. So of course, if you're at all into the law of attraction, if you're at all like on your awakening journey, you're going to feel that it's icky and that there's resistance and there's a nefarious dark aspect. And quite frankly, it is. It's beyond the spectrum of this call in terms of like where AI comes from and stuff like that. But I think we can safely say for this call that AI has been here on Earth for a long time in different iterations. And every single spiritual person right now is already using AI. The reality is they just don't know they're using AI. ChatGPT and the AI wave was the wave to the mass public. Remember, anything that the public is seeing has been worked on behind the scenes by nefarious forces for literally upwards of 100 years. Like if you go back to some of the AI pioneers, like we're talking 100 years old, they were starting to talk about this stuff. And here we are thinking AI in resistance to it for building our business and using it as a tool. To me, it's a little bit silly when you zoom up, because if you're on Netflix, you're using AI. If you're on Google, you've been using AI for the last year. If you're on Facebook, or for the last 10 years on Google, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, an algorithm is literally AI. It's just now been released to the public. So there is no doubt that there is a spiritual agenda. There's the transhumanism agenda. We see it in the schools. Like, I come from Canada. They talk about this stuff. Like, there's a lot of programming of this stuff. Microchips. We all went through the whole stuff that happened a few years ago. Like, it's out there. So we have to be intentional. And this is where you must be spiritually sound. You must be connected to the divine, to God, to source. You must know who you are at your core, because then you have the power. You are in your personal power. You can't be manipulated by this technology. There's a very good analogy that, for me, sums up AI when it comes to coaching, healing, businesses, consultants. This is a shovel. It is a technology no different than your email service provider or your website host. It's a technology, and you take this shovel and you dig the hole. You have to be careful that the AI, the shovel, doesn't start digging you, right? That's the big conundrum. How do you not lose yourself in ChatGPT? How do you maintain your authentic brand voice? How do you maintain your very soul essence while using this technology? And I don't think we fully figured that out. I have my AI Academy coming out, and we talk about this every month because it's evolving so quickly. At what point do you say, no, I'm not going to use this anymore? And it's a little creepy, because every single time you input into ChatGPT, that information is now stored in this AI, artificial intelligence, of everyone across the world. And it's getting smarter, and it's learning, and there's a lot of competition between different AI. So it is intense. And for me, my current gnosis is, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity in the next year, as a coach, healer, consultant, as someone bringing your expertise forward, to learn this technology before it gets out of control, to build your audience, to grow your email list, to make your first $1 million. Why? Well, why do you want $1 million as a visionary entrepreneur? Yes, it's financial security, but what's beyond that? Every single person I work with has a vision for the free and abundant new earth. They want to leverage their business and the resources and wealth and the time freedom that they create to build retreat centers that help people who've been caught in the matrix heal, to be able to advance their spiritual practices. If you want to meditate for 8 hours and make money while you're doing that, well, AI is going to help you do that if you do it right. People want to buy land. Like, cities are getting creepy for a lot of people in a lot of places and unsafe. People want to have communities. People want to be able to earth school their kids. People want to do all these things that are contrary to the patriarchy. And we can do that if we integrate AI. I think the biggest thing is not to do it on your own. Because if you have a group around you, a community around you who's aware of cutting edge AI technology, and we can go beyond this, right? Like, we got to talk about Web3 as well, and crypto and blockchain and all these things that are being simultaneously. Like, you can get lost in a control structure. You can get overwhelmed. Information's coming in like crazy. But if you have a community that is spiritual, that is aware, that is grounded, that are visionary entrepreneurs, that are also going out and like grounding their feet without their shoes on and sun gazing every day, you're going to be fine. You'll be able to play with the technology. You'll be able to experiment with the technology. You'll have the latest cutting information, and you can be held accountable by what? Actual humanness. Because fundamentally, people, when they have resistance to AI, is they fear losing their humanness to technology.
Yeah, I love how you touched on that, because it's like, I feel that our consciousness is what separates us from man versus machine. And that is what ultimately AI will never be able to tap into, the connection to God or source or whatever you want to call it. So I love that you're creating models that are tapping into the power of cultivating that connection first and foremost, and that whole balancing thing that we talked about in the beginning. And that is really the important work that we stick to keep our humanity. And then, like you said, use AI as that tool that then we get to benefit of, but that never
Mhm.
supersedes our ability to be in divine energy versus the machines that will never
Mhm.
have that consciousness, right?
Mhm.
So there's a very fine line between what it will and won't ever have. So it's so important to be in communities and be supported by groups that are learning how to use this in that appropriate way. And
Mhm.
so you mentioned in the beginning that you are helping visionaries in a certain target part of the market, which maybe, I don't know, is underserved right now, or like maybe what do you do with someone who's maybe trying to break out of their corporate job, or they still have their career going, but so
Mhm.
many of us are feeling like burned out and
Yep.
that that's not the direction, and maybe they're a dentist or a lawyer or something, but you want to do something
Yep.
like all of a sudden radically
Yep.
different. Is that who you're really helping when they want to have a new change of direction here?
Well, I think this will be a good time to tell a little bit of my personal story here,
Yeah.
because it very relates to. I'm like you. I came from corporate, and I'll just preface this by saying there are a few steps that currently it's not really my wheelhouse in terms of the offers and what I'm bringing forth in terms of people who are wanting to step out of it, but I'm also a living example of it. So I'll give you some of the tips and some of the key ahas for me, because this is obviously beyond AI. AI is just a tool to bring your vision and your entrepreneurship journey to the next level. But remember, you're holding the tool. So it really comes back to you. And I I did the pretty much the quintessential incarnated in a white body in middle class Canada during,
Privilege.
yeah, like
Yeah.
89, like all that stuff that makes me laugh. But yeah, so I was like, and I've always said like that is the one of the most controlled, indoctrinated aspects of society. It's like they prop up the idea of like the white male has all this privilege, but what people fail to recognize is they're often some of the most manipulable people. Look at what happened a few years ago in Canada. It's like it literally has gone totalitarianism because white men are literally stuck in the matrix because of programming. And I have gone through incredible amounts of my own healing to realize like how to move beyond the confines of what I was in. So let's say this, go through 12, 13 years of indoctrinated schooling. Even though I had spiritual gifts as a kid, they got turned off by like pretty oppressive religious structure, and going through these 12, 13 years of indoctrination camps is what they are. They're indoctrination camps to create workers. Then did 5 years of university to get my business in marketing degree, ended up in corporate oil and gas, contributing to destroying and pillaging the beautiful Canadian forests, exploiting indigenous, caught up in this huge structure. Oh, I got to figure out how to pay off all of my student loans and all this pressure I have. And it brought me to a moment where I was on the 37th floor of this huge oil and gas building in Canada with thousands of employees. I had an inner office and I was 23 or 4. Yeah, like 23 or 4. And I had what you call the epiphany moment. Some people might call this the come to Jesus moment. And I just instantly knew that there was more to life. It was a spiritual activation moment. I always knew there was something more, but that was like this is it. So I just literally typed out my resignation letter, walked across the hall, gave it to my boss. And then 2 weeks later, I was jobless with all of my debt, and my family was shocked. My friends were shocked. Everyone was like, wow, like, what are you going to do? And I would say the single most biggest piece of advice that I would give to a man or a woman, and I will say this maybe a little bit more targeted to men, but it is equally as relevant to women, is if you are wanting to leave the corporate grind where you're caught up and you have obligations and all these things, the best thing you can do is take yourself on a rite of passage. This goes back to our ancestors across the entire globe. Men and women were taken through rites of passage where they had to initiate themselves deeper into their physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual alchemy, learning how to commune with the divine. For men, it often happened out in the wilderness alone with like one spear. For women, it often meant coming to the red tent and getting collected, being taken into the various different temples and initiated in these sisterhoods. And we don't have that. We don't have that. And this is why people are still working in corporate with all their obligations, because they haven't done that. So take yourself out into the wilderness, or maybe you're a woman, maybe you don't want to go in the wilderness. Okay, great. Take yourself somewhere quiet where you can be alone for 10 to 14 days. Maybe you're just booking a freaking hotel room. Doesn't matter. Shut down the outer world. Should take away your phone, take away your laptop, maybe bring your cell phone so you can check in with your wife every night, and literally be with yourself and use that time to meditate. Use that time to envision why you're here. Use this time to speak and communicate with the divine, with God, with source. If you're out in the wilderness, this is a time to get primal, to work with the elements and the waters and learning to sleep under the stars. This is the catalyst that will open everything. And I can give a million tips about, okay, write out your why and draw upon your skill sets. And, oh, look at what for a gap in the market. None of that matters until you take time to actually get quiet and really, you have to take the ego out of it, right? Because we're programmed to be in our ego. And in fact, we all have a divine role, a divine mission that we can move into a business that will pay us if we're willing to listen. And it's already been chosen for us. Some may say God, some may source, some may say whatever. You already had this pre-incarnation. So you don't have to worry. It's already there. What you have to do is get quiet and let it come out. And when you do that, great. Okay, it's going to come out. You want to bring. Maybe you're passionate. Maybe you're really good at coaching, or you're really passionate about partnerships, and you've always been great at. You've had a great relationship for 20 years with your wife. And whenever you go out for dinner or to social occasions, people say, Jimmy, I just absolutely love, like, you and your wife are so in love. How do you do this? You've had 3 kids and you've done this and that. And you'll be like, yeah, I've read a lot of books and I practice and I have an intentional thing. Well, maybe that gets revealed to you. And next thing, you're building some kind of program or some kind of business off of that. That aha is not going to come until you are willing to get quiet.
Wow, that is so true. I mean, I think it's so important for us to have that, create that space in our life. Like you said, go on a retreat. Some people do silent meditation retreat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's all kinds of things out there, but I like how you said you can just do this by yourself, just go get a hotel, go into nature, whatever that might be. So it's so valuable to really tune in and then come from a space of empowerment for us to even make those decisions in the first place. And so I'm curious, I know you have your New Earth Entrepreneur Society, because I know once people go through that process, then you want to find support and community and potentially people who have done it before, and so that you can actually feel supported in order to even make those big steps, because it's scary. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that, your upcoming summit and the newsletter that you have around the New Earth Entrepreneur Society. And are you creating a kind of a container for people to feel supported as they go through this process?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this, before we even talk about me, I will say, if for all of those of you who want to break free of the current paradigm that you're living in, you will do this faster. A, yes, when you go and you get silent, but B, you start hanging around with people who have done the thing that you're doing. This is just the most cliche advice, but it's true. If you want to become an entrepreneur, if you want to become a coach, if you want to become an engineer and you want to transfer into whatever that passion is, make friends, both online, but most importantly, in person, where you can touch them, with people who've done that thing. Be a student, be humble, ask questions. People who have done the thing want to hang out with cool people who are interested in what they've done. And this is a natural way where you can really grow and you can learn. And then because we're frequency-based beings when we're incarnated here. If you're around a frequency of an entrepreneur who's thriving and you're willing and you're open to that, well, naturally, we know about the law of entrainment, where the low frequency will always rise to match the high frequency. So you're around these high frequency entrepreneurs, you're committed to a high frequency. Well, naturally, you'll entrain to that and you'll have more success when you're in your business. Now, in terms of what I can offer, we have the New Earth Entrepreneur Society, which is, we basically help educate visionary entrepreneurs how to scale their business with ease and flow using AI authentically and not losing their humanness. So if you're all interested in using cutting edge technologies to grow your business, keeping up to date with the latest news and what people are doing, you can come join us. This is a free community. We have a group, a private channel. We have a weekly newsletter that you'll have access to that I personally architect every single week, which will keep you up to date to what's happening in the stars and beyond this realm. Because remember, millionaires follow the market, billionaires follow the stars. So we need to know the overarching energetics of what's happening at this time. We look at some of the macro level trends that you need to know, like the reset of the financial system that's coming up. All these things are very important to know, and often spiritual entrepreneurs sometimes can be a little bit bypassing the context of what we're architecting our businesses in. So we look at that, and then we look at some of the tactical, practical. Oh, okay, well, this is an actual AI tool or software that you can use like this to build your business. So we really cover the spectrum, and that newsletter is absolutely free. I honestly think we could be charging for this a couple $100s. I know I'm on some crypto newsletters where people bring together good advice, and I pay quite a bit of money for that. This is totally free. Doesn't matter where you're on your journey. If you identify as a visionary entrepreneur, you belong here. And yeah, you can get that. I'm sure it'll be in the show notes or on my business channel, or follow me on Instagram.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, definitely. We're going to have that all linked, because I'm excited to offer that to anyone listening, and obviously getting in touch with you on Instagram. And I know that's where we originally connected as well. And I love what you said about I know that that's a little quote, but I wanted to highlight that the millionaires follow the markets and the billionaires follow the stars, or whatever.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about, it's 2024. In the intro, I talked about the golden era. We're talking about solar flashes happening. Like, where does this all fit in with astrology and like age of Aquarius? Like, what do you guys focus on when you're talking about this alignment with the universe and what's happening, and why it's so important right now in this cosmic moment of the universe?
Totally. I'm just kind of smiling because of the magnitude of like what we actually do converse about, because it's incredibly deep. And a lot of society has not a lot of society in this current incarnation can't fully grasp the energetics that we're playing with, and that's okay. They will. I truly know in my heart of hearts that doesn't matter where your soul at. We're all brothers and sisters. We're all incarnated here for a reason, and we're all one. We're all making our way back to God and the source, and like revelation and reawakening, or we'll all get there. Maybe it's in this lifetime, maybe it's not. But my current gnosis is that the long prophesized golden dawn, golden age, the Hopi called it the rise of the rainbow warriors, is happening. If you look back at every major spiritual tradition, every esoteric tradition, every major religion, they all prophesize this time. The Maya, right? 2012, the end of the calendar, right? Well, it wasn't the end of the earth. It was the end of that age, that epoch, where we now move into this next level of awakening. Now, there is a lot of depth to this. It does involve stars. It does involve the universe. It involves the universal time matrix. The sun. It involves all these different things. But I think it can be summed up pretty easily in saying that humanity has gotten pretty freaking dark. We kill each other. That is how bad the ego has got to, where men willingly kill each other in order to not deal with their own pain. And we are now seeing a reverse of that. This is why they're trying to do a transhumanism thing. This is why they're spraying the skies. This is why they put pesticides and herbicides. It's because they are literally trying to dim down the mass rising that is happening with humans right now. And I will say without a doubt, like, I have enough evidence from just not only in myself, but just witnessing in the world over the last 10 years. Like, we're on a parabolic rise. And remember, to truly move, where we talked about entrainment, right? Where we want to raise humanity to a higher frequency, where there's no war, no grust, no suppression. Sounds like utopia. People are living in purpose, prosperity, and peace. Like, that's what New Earth visionaries desire. We only require 1 to 3% of the global human population to rise into knowing that. even identifying as a visionary already shows that you're there. And we've already hit that point. We've hit that point. So now what we're about to see and experience, I would say between 2024 and 2030 will be an incredible awakening of human consciousness like we've never seen before. And because of this, they're going to try and put like chips and stuff in people because they want to dim you down. They want you sick. They want you ill. Remember, if you're sick and you believe you're only the body, your spirituality, your spiritual connection will dim, you will be more controllable. They can make you into a cyborg. That's the dark thing. But the cool thing is light is always powerful than dark. High frequency human who's in their visionary, living their life on their own terms. Yeah, sure, we have to deal and navigate some intensity, but really like at a core, feeling balanced, that will change an entire block of people who are miserable. This is why I call it the apartment syndrome. Imagine you in your apartment and there's 1,000 people in that apartment and you become committed to being a visionary entrepreneur, to forgiving yourself, to shattering the illusion, to coming to know God's source and practicing that. Your frequency will entrain those 999 other people as the energetics of what's happening literally to our planet, to our solar system continue. So all I can say is big change is coming. We're going to see intensity. Everything based in greed, lust, suppression, control will be exposed, and it's going to be intense. It's going to be intense. We fight wars with each other. We take taxes off of each other. We judge each other based on their skin color. We have stereotypes. We have hidden history. It is so deep, and all of it is going to literally come to light. And this is, again, why getting yourself aligned physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually is imperative. This is why a relationship with the divine, and a relationship with the divine that's unique to you, doesn't have to have any constructs. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It's just getting in alignment with the divine. Following your path is so imperative because it will be intense. You mentioned the solar flash. That could happen, right? It may happen. There's whole schools of AI thought that like that's actually what's going to save humanity. There's so many things, and we have evidence, right? Like the last 3-4 weeks, like we've had incredible amounts of solar radiation in the class of M, C, M, and X class flares. We've had the biggest solar radiation blast come towards Earth in this solar cycle of like the last seven years a couple weeks ago. All of that is changing consciousness. That's a mechanism of awakening. And there's no amount of AI, there's no amount of spraying of the sky, there's no amount of gaslighting you that is going to change that. So I say strap yourself in, get ready, build your business, live every single day while you can, and just know that everything is going to change ultimately for the better.
Wow, amazing. I mean, it's so true. It's like the prophecy is coming, the ancient traditions talking about this. I love how you touched on that because we are really experiencing this concept of birthing a new earth and the end of an old era. And I think it's so important what you talked about with the apartment and how our since we're all energy, the frequency around us is going to lift. We hear that as kind of a cliche that it lifts everyone. But you really mentioned that it only takes what did you say, 1 to 3% of the population, and it's already like the light workers, and we've already reached that tipping point. So we have to face this with hopefully a lot of optimism at this point, right? As opposed to what do you maybe I know we're going to wrap up here, but I just like that you're bringing this, bringing this into like an optimistic view of a future versus like death and destruction and apocalyptic. So tell me a little bit about how we stay optimistic even in these times where war is being manifested as an element of this process, and all of this death and destruction is occurring, and a lot of people are just living in fear that this is really the end. And then how do we get out of that mindset and into holding strong into this more optimistic vision that you have?
Yeah, it's $1 million question right there. I think one of the biggest things is in order to fully connect back to God, to source, to the great mystery, back to the oneness, finding your new unique ratio, there must be a relentless commitment to sovereignty. And everything around you externally, people, places, things, governments, aliens, whatever, they're all a test, a lesson for your sovereignty. And we saw how sovereignty was tested at a base level 3-4 years ago when that whole scheme rolled out. And we saw the fear come up. We saw it come to be looked at. We saw people rising up. We saw people get complacent. We saw people bypass. And that was just the first phase. Make no mistake. Like, we are going to be going into something that I think is going to look like child's play to that, because people are very asleep. And to snap out of that level of sleep, it's kind of like you have to take, because you and I see a lot of these things and we still get caught up in the density, but we see these. But a lot of the population still needs, like, it's kind of like the hammer to the head. Like, how much more can you be put in front of you until you finally have that awakening? And that's what we're going to see. And it's going to be intense. And it's going to be intense for those of us that see. And this is why, moment to moment, you have to check in and ask yourself, like, am I truly sovereign? Am I living my sovereignty? Where am I giving away my sovereignty? Where am I giving away my personal power? And this is a personal journey for each of us, because we all have unique triggers, programs, conditionings, traumas that are going to come up and test our sovereignty. And we have to literally become devoted to our sovereignty. And that'll look different for everyone. But if we wake up in the morning and we declare we're devoted to our sovereignty, and we go to bed at night, we declare we're devoted to our sovereignty, and we take the steps in between to claim our sovereignty, we're already fine. Like, we've already made it to the new earth. Like, the moment is here. And if people ever get overwhelmed, I think there's a very important practice, and I think this will be a good note to close on. If you feel overwhelmed at some point and that you're fearful of what's happening, it is because at its core, you are feeling that you're disconnected from the divine. When you are actually connected to the divine, there is actually no fear, because the divine doesn't know no fear. There is no fear created by that ultimate power. So go outside, take your shoes off, ground into the earth, feel the energy. Just, if you need to repeat to yourself, like, we are all one, I am one with the divine, whatever works for you. And just remind yourself that there are millions and millions of very awake people living their new earth dream, going through the evolutionary fires of this awakening that we're going through right now, just like you. And they are not going to quit. There's no amount of AI. There's no amount of gaslighting. There's no amount of taxes. There's no amount of armies that is going to put that back in the bottle and suppress it. It simply, it literally can't. And that can give you a lot of confidence if for a moment you waver.
Wow, I love that it's for you, like, that focus on bringing out sovereignty. And I talk a lot, or feel a lot of moving into authenticity as a kind of a general theme, and how authenticity brings us into that highest vibrational state. And that's a journey for all of us, right? Shedding away these programs and these constructs. And I love that you talked a little bit about your own journey. I mean, obviously coming out of the white male privileged patriarchy, but really pointing out that in a lot of ways, yeah, that's actually emerging from the most indoctrinated state of being, and that you were put here having to shed even more, trauma around that in a lot of ways. So I feel like this is such the mission work that we're doing, and you're bringing out so many great ways that people can learn from your experience and really take off with this stuff on their own. So yeah, I'm so excited that we got to dive in deep with that, Spence. And before we wrap up here, I know that people can follow you. We mentioned your Instagram, and if someone wants to reach out, where do you recommend that they go to? Like, if they do you set up phone calls or do consultations or anything like that? If anyone's listening and wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, the best place is to go to my website, which is www.newearth.business. So not .com, .biz, .business. It's got all my social links. It's got all my freebies and gifts. You can get on the newsletter there. You can see my programs and offerings. And like I say, I spend a lot of time in the DMs on Instagram, so people can just send me a note if they want to connect there.
Awesome. I love that. I know that's how we connected originally too. So yeah, kudos to you to being responsive and receptive to people who want to get in touch, like actually have a human element, not just be
Mhm.
an automated system. So I love that. And then before we wrap up, any final thoughts or words of wisdom you'd like to share to kind of leave with our audience? Because I know you touched on so much, and I'd love to have you back in the future because I know that we could have gone into
Yeah.
a lot of different areas. But yeah, some final thoughts or words of wisdom for anyone who might be listening and get really motivated by what they heard here.
So the final word of wisdom is that you are elite. You are divine. You are literally the best of the best from this illusion we call the universal time matrix, because no soul was allowed to incarnate into the great experiment we call planet Earth and humanity without having an insane amount of knowledge, wisdom, and experiences through our separation from source. And every single person that came in and that has looped, because we've had past lives, and every single one of us has the knowledge, the experience, the connections, the divine wisdom, divine power, divine love, and that can't be taken away. The construct of the old way, the patriarchal ways, the system, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, will do everything in its power to condition you into believing that you are a finite body who dies and is limited. And that is a fallacy, and that is rapidly changing. And take heed and confidence knowing that by you simply being here, you are absolutely amazing. And the only one who's ultimately limiting you, your journey, your entrepreneurship, your money, your wealth, your love, your relationships. So if you take 100% radical responsibility, you'll see huge shifts. Like I literally have clients who can get into alignment, have an aha, claim themselves, make a little messaging tweak, and they 10x. It's like people can go from making $10,000 a month to $100,000 a month without doing a whole lot when they remember that they are these divine beings, infinitely capable, and they're not limited in any way.
I love that. Yes, take your power back, people. That's what we like to
Mm-hmm.
hear. I love it, Spence. Yeah, amazing. And it's always when we reach those points of that realization hitting that's when we take those massive turns, or the shift really occurs, and it can happen in
Mm-hmm.
such a big way and so rapidly. 10xing everything in your life is totally within the grasp of what we're here to do, and living in this abundance, in this
Mm-hmm.
once we have this real steadfast course onto our spiritual journey. So I love that you are doing this work and bringing in more and more entrepreneurs and light workers and healers and coaches and whatever that might be into this,
Mm-hmm.
because we all need to get there. So thank you so
Yep.
much, Spence. I really appreciate the work you're doing, and I can't wait for people to go to your website and really benefit from all of that. So
For having me.
yeah, awesome. And I hope to have you again soon. And I know we've been talking for a long time here, but anyone who wants to reach out, I'm going to put the links in the episode, or you can come to my website, adinamo.com, my Instagram at Edina Mauvana, and obviously Spence will have all of his
Mm-hmm.
links as well. So thank you so much for listening, everyone, and I look forward to our next episode. Thank you so much, guys. Bye bye.